it's really important to take up space because you belong. And I think a lot of actors feel we put people on these
Pedestals.
these tiers and
Yeah.
pedestals, and we look at these people we admire, these actors, these stars, and we look at their amazing talent, and it's almost like we're treating it separate from ourselves without realizing like we have that talent as well.
Welcome to Get Scene Unscripted. I'm your host, Jesse Malinowski. We are going to dive into acting insights, meet industry pros, and master the business. Don't forget to subscribe and share. We're keeping you behind the scenes and ahead of the game. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Get Scene Unscripted. I'm your host, Jesse Malinowski. If you are coming back, welcome back. And if this is your first time, welcome. You are going to be here for an incredible show. I can't wait for you to meet our next guest here today. But before I do that, I want to give a shout out to some of you that are leaving us different comments and reviews. And I want to give a shout out to, I think it's Manu Savella. Said, oh man, by now I have so much to say about you and your channel. I don't know where to start. First off, thank you so much for bringing the amazing colleagues to share their mind and experience. I find true connection with each and every one of them. I can't find any more gratitude that I can give for your YouTube channel. Thanks, Jesse, and I wish I have the honor of sitting in the chair across. Cheers. I hope so too. And with that, actually, our guest is someone that has a similar story, I think. Found us on YouTube, was like, hey, I'd love to be sitting in that chair. And I was like, wow, you have a lot to offer. Everyone get excited for Cuyle Carvin. What's up, man?
Yo, I don't even know you very well. We just re-met for the first time in many 8 years or whatever.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I'm proud of you, dude. Like, you're making this happen.
Thank
and
you.
It's pretty cool. And it's just, it came from the spark of an idea in your head and you followed through, and that's awesome.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
Cool.
Well, I gotta shout out to you because like you said, we had met like 8 years ago or so at a play.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't really keep contact, and like I said when you got here, I don't know how, because you're just, you're so on the ball. You book a lot. And so I know that you have a lot to offer. So I'm excited to dive in, and you've been able to work in all of the major markets. And so the first thing I want to say is, I think a lot of actors think that they want to do that. And I'd like your honest thoughts on that. Like, some of the things that are hardships in that. Is it smart? Because I think there's a certain sense of like, should I just point my energy in one direction and like be all in there? Or, is there such a thing as kind of spreading yourself too thin? Or is it like, no, get as many opportunities as you can as an actor?
Yeah, I think all those things can exist at the same time. It's all within the context of where you are in your life. I started in New York. I lived in 2004. I moved to the city. I'm from upstate New York. Moved down to the city, and that's where I started everything. So I didn't know anything. I didn't grow up wanting to be an actor. I knew nothing about it. I didn't even really know how to get headshots. And this was back in the day of black and white headshots.
Oh man, yeah.
Which is like, and I remember, this is a slight tangent already. You're going to have to pull me back. But it's like
fine.
Color headshots you could pay extra for, but nobody wanted it because it was so different and odd looking.
What year is this?
This was 2004.
2004.
And it was like they were just slowly starting to make.
You know what's so crazy?
Yeah.
I moved to New York in 2005, 2006, and I remember getting the new like $1,100 headshots and being like, we're switching back to color, or we're switching back to color. I remember this. Yeah.
So it's like, back in those days, but so it's like I spent five years in New York, and I did a lot of background work. That's how, that's how I got experience to set. Really learned. I went to commercial classes, just worked with other actors to figure out like how do I make sense of how to be an actor? I don't understand like how do I couldn't get an agent. Obviously, every step of this acting thing is this catch-22, right?
Yeah.
It's like nobody's gonna sign this overly excited guy wearing this bright pink shirt coming to some workshop and probably like reeking of desperation, like, hey, help me figure this out.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it takes a while just to even figure out what to do. So I did spend 4 or 5 years in New York. I didn't even get an agent till I'd say right at the tail end of my New York career. It took a long time just to get a yes from an agent. And I got my first, within months, I got my first line on Law and Order SVU. But
Oh,
this was a
wow.
time that back in the day, there was like 4 soap operas in New York. There's like 3 Law and Order shows. Then the random movie would come through and a couple other TV shows. But work was actually, opportunities were slim pickings. All that to say, at that point in my life, if all I'm trying to say, I should say, is that like I lived in New York and then I was in LA for about 8 years and then Atlanta for the past 7 or 8. And each segment of my career is also distinctly different times of my personal growth, who I became. So I think it's not, I can't necessarily compare all 3 major markets as, apples to apples just because of who I was at the time. But, I know I'm not answering your
No,
question
I think that's a great point,
directly,
though.
but
I mean, I think that's a beautiful way to look at it, and I think you're right. You know what I mean? Like, we're different at different times. Where you have an actor that might want to do Atlanta and New York at the same time, and depending on where they're at in their life, they may or may not be ready. So I
yeah.
mean, I think that's a good variable to address. If you're an actor, great news, because our virtual actor summit is coming up quickly. It is going to be September 6th, 7th, and 8th. And early bird pricing is right now, but I'm also going to throw in a $15 promo because you are listening to this podcast. If you're an actor that's wanting really solid strategy and tactics to move your career forward, then this event is going to be for you. Just imagine a 3-day virtual event that's completely immersive, meaning there's going to be participation with different instructors. You're going to be actually working on auditions. You're going to be able to meet other community members here in the Southeast and industry pros that can help give you the knowledge and wisdom to move your career forward. So if this sounds like something that you think would be beneficial to you, head to the link in the description right now. Don't forget to use that $15 off promo code, and I can't wait to see you at our virtual actor summit coming up.
Yeah. And there's, when I went to LA, that was more out of just lack of what was happening in New York in terms of 3 of the soap operas all ended their runs, and then 2 of the Law and Orders got canceled. So it's like what's more to do? So that's the prompt of moving to LA, and then coming to Atlanta. I was working this was 2012 or 2013. I got an agent in the Southeast when Atlanta was really already on the up and up, but nothing like it is now.
Yeah.
But I heard from, some murmurings in LA. I was like, hey, check out, what's going on in Atlanta. There's some opportunities. And the markets are vastly different. We can go there if you want to, but in LA, I was with a boutique agency, and I had almost reached like a ceiling with them, where I needed to, in order for my career to grow, my resume to grow, I needed to get. I was in this co-star world.
They just weren't getting you the larger opportunities.
Yeah, and not for lack of effort. It's just like it's just part of LA. So I don't want to use the word like political game, but it's like this political game, this game of clout, Game of Thrones. So it's like certain agencies, just like certain managers or certain casting directors, we all get pigeonholed into the kind of work that typecast. We're all typecast in different ways. So it's like the agency I was had a certain amount of clout that was limited. They were known for co-star actors, so they weren't able to really get me anything larger. So I was like, well, I need to, but who's going to see me when I stuck in that? Who's going to see me for bigger roles when I don't have the bigger roles on my resume? So it's another catch-22.
Right.
So I heard about Atlanta. I was like, I hear some actors are going to Atlanta where there's less competition, but they're ramping up productions. There's more amount of shows. So actors are going there and they're getting 5 episodes on The Walking Dead. And then they're coming back to LA and say, look, recurring Walking Dead, one of the biggest shows in the world.
Right.
And they're able to sign with a bigger agency because now they're perceived as having this value,
Right.
which they're not necessarily even different than they were in LA. It's just the perceived value has now changed. So now the agencies have interest. So I was like, I think that's how I get around this. This is how I'm going to get a bigger agent. I'm going to go to Atlanta. Well, not going to Atlanta, just being a local hire. So you play that local hire game, and then, going back to your question of, then it made sense for me, because I had this plan of how to progress, right? So I was willing to work as the local hire, fly myself out, put myself up, act as a local hire for whatever scale was, $1,000, right? And you don't really make money there. Yeah, obviously you get residuals in the long run, but you kind of break even in a way in doing this local hire game. And it sounds good, and maybe it is for a little while, but it is a pain in the butt, and it creates some problems. And I'll tell a little story. And if I ever talk too much, just cut me off, man. Just be like, dude, let's bring it back. Bring me in. Okay, cool. And it was the Fincannons, who are amazing. And I had booked, it was a Friday I auditioned for. This was like at 2014, 2015. And I had booked Daytime Divas. Or I didn't, well, I should say I didn't book it. I auditioned for Daytime Divas on.
Wait, dropped a diva.
Oh, sorry. No, Daytime Divas. It was.
I don't even know.
It was like a VH1 show.
Oh, yeah.
I think it was VH1, right?
No, yeah, you're right.
Daytime Divas.
Yeah.
And I auditioned. I think it was like a Thursday night. Didn't hear anything on Friday other than I don't remember the language that was used. Available. Oh, I had an avail check. That's what it was. Avail check on Friday, and I was so used to avail checks in LA, just not really meaning anything other than there's interest, but I wasn't pinned. I wasn't confirmed in any more.
Yeah, it's funny how all the casting directors use that terminology differently, and it means something different for each office.
It seems to be different with even markets seem to be a little different. So Friday night, I was doing this Netflix English dubbing project at the time, and Friday night, nothing. I didn't hear anything, so I'm assuming all is good. I didn't get the show, and I'm scheduled. So I scheduled Monday. I said I could come in to do the English dubbing for this Netflix show, and then Monday morning, it's 7:30, and I wake up. I have this email from my agents like, "Hey, they need you here for a fitting today because you're going to be filming tomorrow." And I was like, I can't do that. I'm across the country. I can't make this work. And I'm working today. So I tell my agent, I was like, I really can't, I'm so sorry. I had no idea that I was even like pinned or that I was confirmed. And so a little back and forth with casting. And I get this warning saying, if you don't get here, like there are certain consequences. And I was like, because they really fought for me on this role. So obviously I was like, oh, like if I was that position, I would be really upset at that actor too. I would be really upset. So I was like, okay, I gotta make this work. So I drove to Netflix and it was like, and I begged them. And I felt like so unprofessional, of course, because this is like booked work. It was like, I begged them if we could move it. And they were so thankful they allowed me to move it. So I was able to, catch a flight, get to Atlanta and do that. But all that, I'm just pointing that story out because I was like, this is one of the caveats of doing local work.
Yes.
It's like you have to be willing to put yourself through hell. If this happens, there's consequences. It's really selfish to just think about myself and what I needed in that situation. And I almost didn't do it, which would have created a hellstorm on this end of things for casting.
Huge domino effect of problem,
and it just gives the whole market it's a bad taste in the mouth for the entire market when actors back out of a job for who cares what the reason is, when they say they're available to do something and then they don't. Like, especially gives you, outside of yourself, just a bad name. It gives this whole local hire when you're not local hire. It's just not. Anyway, that was one bad.
I love that story, and it's funny, as you were telling it, I was like, "You're the reason they're so mad."
Yeah, totally.
And it's it's because like when people are like, "Look, I want to work local," and I love your story so much because it's a pretty good one of like, this is what local means. Like, you were working, had to like go beg them to be like, please, like, reschedule this. Maybe they don't.
Yeah.
And maybe you have to stay there. And like, you will never audition for the Fincannons again after that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
right.
And then not only are you not auditioning, whoever your agent was at the time,
oh yeah,
Fincannons are pissed at them.
Yeah.
And maybe not now. You have potentially ruined everyone on that roster.
Yeah.
We'll just say the ABC agency. The Fincannons is pissed at everyone at ABC agency because of what you did. I mean, it's just like you said,
Very
it's
true.
just like it's not just you. And if you do think of like, oh, I'll work local, yeah, I'll figure it out, until maybe you don't, it is really selfish. And I'm glad that you brought that up.
Yeah. And obviously it's, it happens, and it happens every day, I'm guessing. The cool thing is I think it's actually happening in the reverse now too. When I say the cool thing, after telling that story of why it's not the best idea all the time, but it's like, I think there are people working like myself. I've just worked as a local in New York for 6 months. I've worked I went back to LA as a local. I mean, I'm from those and I lived there, so I have a certain presence, of course. But the local thing is definitely worth doing some real consideration of the flexibility in your life. It really requires free time and financially, because sometimes you don't make any money. You can actually lose a little money.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I agree. It's just you just want to make sure that you. What I tell people when it comes to the local thing is, I'm like, because we have a lot of people that are, part of our mentorship or whatever, and they want to work obviously in the Southeast, but maybe don't live quite in the Southeast. Maybe, North Carolina, Florida, something like that. And what I say is, I'm like, you're an actor. Get ready to play the part of someone that lives in Atlanta. That means like your Florida address no longer exists in your mind. You have now an Atlanta address, and that is your address. Like,
that's funny.
You don't live in Atlanta. You better learn about one of the suburbs of Atlanta. You know what I mean? Like,
that's true. That's right.
Like, you need to play that part. And so if someone says, be here at 4, you got to figure that out. Or you got to have like a realistic excuse, not I'm in Florida. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
You got to have a realistic excuse of why you can't make it at 4.
Sure.
Maybe you're working your other job, but then your ass better be in the car.
Yeah.
So it's just like, really doing it is a lot.
Yeah.
And like, you think you want to, but you might not.
You might not.
Because like that day that you described sounds
awful.
Stressful as hell.
It really was. It made me not want to do, that was one of the things, because I was already on the cusp of like, hey, let's just move to Atlanta. I'm flying there multiple times a year already. And it's like, I don't want to deal with this again. And I do think there's something to be said with, the context of your career. I think as much as I appreciate and champion stability, it's like part of being an actor is you're accepting instability into your life.
Yeah.
And you're willing to do things that don't make sense to other people, or just don't make sense to yourself sometimes.
Yeah.
And sometimes that means doing really stupid stuff in the pursuit of your dream, if you will.
Yeah.
It's like, so sometimes, flying across the country and making your life hell to get a credit that you really want, or you think you need, you do what you have to do sometimes. So there's definitely that element at play as well. Like,
yeah,
I'm such a fan of all things existing at the same time. I'll probably say that many times. So it's like there's no one way or right or wrong way to do any of this. There's just a
Right.
lot of variables at any given time. So I think that's worth considering. That's like sometimes you do stupid stuff in the name of love for the game.
And you know, like you're I just want to talk about this really quick and then I want to jump into the next thing. But you you know, you're like, my plan is to go get the recurring on Walking Dead so I can come back. But
Yeah.
it wasn't. It was a VH1 show
Yeah.
that like probably didn't do much for your career.
No, I don't think it did. It's like I think when I did finally move here though, I tried it out in 2016 for a couple of months. I was like, okay, it's happening. Went back to LA, got out of my lease, drove to Atlanta. But the idea was still to go back to LA once I had whatever I thought their required resume qualifications would be to get that next tier of agency. So that was the plan. It didn't happen because Atlanta became amazing in many different ways, but that was still the original plan, to kind of circumnavigate
Right.
all the catch-22s in LA. So
Well, you said you just worked local in New York, and I'd love to hear about this project because you were alongside Robert De Niro. So one, I want to know what's like a big takeaway that you got from working with him and from that set.
yeah, man, so much personally and professionally. I was up there for 6 months, which is crazy. It's the longest I've ever been on a single project.
Congrats, man.
Yeah,
I know we would have had you on the
appreciate
show
it.
earlier, but
Oh,
you
yeah.
couldn't get
Yeah,
get here.
totally. Yeah, it was. It was ended up being all 6 episodes. It's a mini series, and I auditioned for a small co-star, and it ended up as one of those. It's just one of those stories. Went in for like a 1-pager, and ended up getting word from casting that it was a bigger role. Didn't say exactly what. And then over the next few days, it was like more was revealed, and ended up being a much bigger role. All 6 episodes of the show. But originally it was something that I thought I was going to pass on because it was like a 1-page scene,
And it said co-star.
and it was, I'm not sure if it said co-star or not, but it certainly, when I read what it was like, oh, this is a co-star. It didn't mention like recurring or multiple episodes or anything.
Right.
So I assumed it was, a co-star. However, when I looked up the project, I saw Netflix, Robert De Niro, Leslie Inca Glatter as the director, Jesse Plemons was involved. So it's like, and the scene was with Connie Britton, who I was a huge fan of from Friday Night Lights. That was like one of my favorite shows.
Nashville.
So I was like, there's no way I'm going to turn this down. Because I'm like, I as much as I appreciate the saying yes to like the power of yes, I really believe in the power of no as well. And I was going to say no to this because I have like this criteria I loosely follow, I should say, that it has to help me either professionally, meaning like my resume or the people involved, or it has to be like some sort of financial windfall, or personally, it has to do something that means something to me. And this hit on a couple things. It didn't help my resume per se, but it really helped that I was going to work with these particular names that I was a fan of. And same thing personally, like I would get to work with people that I've been fans of. So I was like, yeah, we're totally in for this. And then, yeah, it turned into this 6-episode thing. And not only that, it was, now I play the head of Secret Service for De Niro's character. So I spent the last 6 months, I've worked directly with De Niro. It's like I'm his guy.
Jeez.
It was like me, him, and Jesse Plemons plays his like top like right-hand man, so to speak. So it's like us three. I just spent 6 months working with those guys.
Wow.
And like professionally, what I really noticed was,
Hold on. Was there a moment you were just like pinching yourself that you were just like, oh my God? Or were you like, I deserve this. This is where I'm supposed to be.
both.
Both?
Yeah,
All at the same
all at
time?
the same time.
Yeah.
I think like it was easy to recognize how lucky I was, first of all. Because I don't think, I might contradict myself sometimes, but I don't think that I offered anything specifically unique to this role. I think a lot of people can play this. Not just a lot. I think a lot of people who are my type. I think I just had a solid audition. I think a lot of variables fell into place, and I know how easily this couldn't have been mine as well. So I recognized how grateful I was, while also feeling that I belonged there. Just where, I've been doing this for 20 years, and I think one thing I do recognize is I think oftentimes we as actors don't take up space that that we are. Meaning, sometimes I think too much when I'm talking, so I pause. But it's really important to take up space because you belong. And I think a lot of actors feel we put people on these
Pedestals.
these tiers and
Yeah.
pedestals, and we look at these people we admire, these actors, these stars, and we look at their amazing talent, and it's almost like we're treating it separate from ourselves without realizing like we have that talent as well.
Yes.
And I think there are roles that if we had the opportunity, the timing was right, if we get the opportunity for, say, an audition or the opportunities to do it, I think that the only difference between who we think we are as actors or who we are as actors and these people that we celebrate for their accomplishments and their talent is just the opportunity. I think so much of this is just timing, and I recognized that while being on this set was these people were obviously, these are massively talented individuals, massively accredited, and so many nominees and winners of Academy Awards on this show. We had series regulars coming in for one episode. So it was nuts to see people who were coming on this project just for the caliber of the show. So it was just getting to see and experience, getting to experience that and seeing like there's this one scene. It's this big disaster scene. There's a lot of details going on. There's I don't know. There were 600 extras that day.
Whoa.
And there's protests going on. So the set, we're working on this closed off street, work on Wall Street, and at both ends there's protests going on. It's part of the story of the show. And meanwhile, there's this disaster scene, and there's firemen and police, emergency personnel. There's people running back and through the scene, and these protests are cheering. It's like just this intense scene. And there's a couple actors who were there just for their one scene in this of the show. So there's this fire captain on set, and he knew his value. He knew his place on set, that he belonged here, and he was so involved with, because he knew he was just as important as Dinero in that scene. He knew he talked with the director. He asked questions. He gave his thoughts on how he thought he might approach the scene, while also having awareness to not be an annoying actor and asking for motivations or.
Was he just like one day?
This guy was here for just this one day, and
Yeah.
I'd say it was maybe 5 lines or so.
Wow.
And I was so impressed with him. And not only, I wasn't the only one. Like, in between takes, when we would reset and go back to our starting point, I would hear from director, I heard from Bob and Jesse how much they love this guy, because he just acted like he belonged there. And that's what I mean by, like, us actors, I think sometimes are a little timid to take up our space.
Yeah.
Especially when we have when we do go in for, say, co-stars or smaller roles, or 1-day roles or 2-day roles or whatever. It's hard. It's hard to go into sets, the factory's in place, like it's moving, and you're just coming in. But most people are familiar. The crew's all familiar.
Yeah,
the regulars
exactly.
are all familiar with each other, and it's tough. It's a little intimidating sometimes to come into something that's this well-oiled machine, and you're just like, you don't want to mess it up. You don't want to screw everything up. So sometimes it's easy to fall back and just kind of get lost in everything. But this guy was a great example of knowing that how important he is, because if this doesn't work for him, if he can't make it real, then that makes the entire project suffer. It makes certainly the scene suffer, but the entire project at large, it makes everybody worse off if he doesn't take up the space that he deserves to be in.
How do you think, because I feel like that's maybe like easier said than done, take up space,
Sure.
But you kind of said a couple other things that I'm wondering if that could be like the key to it. Is like, if obviously, we don't know the scene exactly, but the way that you're describing it, if the fire captain's there, fire captain's actually probably in charge,
Sure.
But I guess I'm just like, how do you think we as actors can get there to that comfortability of being able to own ourselves in the character and not feel that timidness? Because you're right. Like, if you're there, and I guess unless you're like the waiter, like bringing the Coke and that's it, like,
Sure.
you're there for a reason.
Yeah.
I mean, the waiter's there for a reason too, but you know what I mean? Like, in the grand scheme, like, they wrote that character's written in for a purpose. You know what I mean?
Sure.
It's not just for fun. Like, they don't want to pay you just because they feel like it, right? They
Yeah.
bringing you there for a very specific reason. So how do you think as actors we can, I don't know, find that so we can be more confident, be more comfortable, and like you said, kind of take up and own our space?
I think a lot of it has to do with experience, which I know it's like, well, how do you get experience if I don't have experience?
Yeah.
It's totally one of those things. But, outside of that, it's figuring out how to be confident. I think confidence plays a big role in being able to have awareness of your job on set. And again, I think it can always go back to that question. Well, how, if I'm not a very confident person, how do I get confidence? And I think there's a lot to be said with, I'm an advocate of whatever you're doing in life, whatever you're doing professionally I think is in correlation with your progress as a person. And part of that is just having, I know we were going to talk about this, but I don't want to skip to it, but I think having a
We're not
life.
skipping, we're segueing.
That's okay. We're segueing, but I definitely got to come back to this other thing too. We'll segue and then back into another segue. Is having this life outside of this industry, because I think the building of fulfillment specifically outside of this life is where you find all the tools that are necessary for success as an actor,
So
or whatever
true.
you're choosing. Like, you find your patience, you find strength, you find consistency, you find confidence. I think all the things that are necessary for success in anything, I think, are actually built through finding and fulfilling your life with other things, with everything that you enjoy.
Yes. I can't agree more.
Yeah. So it's like, I don't know. It's just having to, like, I don't know that particular actor's resume. I don't know much about him. Maybe he works a lot. Maybe he does. So maybe he has a lot of experience, but that's definitely the kind of thing you will get with experience. And that can come from, it doesn't even have to be experience on these large sets. I mean, just working in general, even auditioning, I think builds confidence.
Well, I think I think a couple different sides of this too is like the I think not only is it confidence, and I don't mean this in a negative way at all, but like it just also it doesn't mean that much. And I
It's
think all
very
of
true.
that coincides, right? So if you have a big resume, you're like, it's just another set. It's just another credit. It's just another project.
Yeah.
So it's not like, oh my God, this is the one, right? And then same thing, it's like if I'm on a set, but like I'm going on some big trip, I'm taking my mom to Alaska and I'm excited about that. Like I also have other stuff going on that I'm excited about. It's not just this one thing. So I think it's kind of like, I think you can find your way there a couple of different ways.
Dude, I'm so glad you said that because, it's been mentioned here, I think, on previous episodes. And it's like kind of a catchphrase at this point of not being attached to the outcome, right? And what you just said is a way, because it's like, well, how do I unattach from this outcome that I wanted? And that's one of the key ingredients to that is having other stuff going on outside your life. And I think also behind that is changing your opinion of the outcome. Because there's an outcome, whatever outcome we're chasing, it means something to us, whether it's like what's at the core of what we want in any particular outcome. And oftentimes I think it can be some sort of external validation, whatever that looks like, whether it's the cool factor, whether it's some sort of financial implication of what that might mean or how you're viewed. What's my life going to look like? Just anything, an external validation versus an internal validation, right? If you're doing this for reasons that are strictly for your own growth, your own fulfillment, it's much easier to do exactly what we're talking about of unattaching from this outcome because it's just another thing, but it's not. Your identity isn't wrapped up in the outcome.
Yep.
Hopefully that makes sense. I don't even know if it does.
Yeah, I think it definitely does. And it's just, I think you're right when it's like, I know it's just, I'm just thinking about it because I'm like, it is tough though to like, be unattached to the outcome when you want a specific outcome.
Yeah.
You know what, actually, if you add this to it, I talked about this like at our big summit, about having an onset intention.
Sure.
And so, I think also you can kind of, you can want a specific outcome, but if you're also showing up with a very specific intention of like holding my space or connecting with people or, I'm gonna focus on remembering everyone's name,
Sure.
or I'm gonna try to not spend all the time in my trailer.
Sure.
I'm gonna try to learn stuff on set. I'm gonna try to learn one of the crew people and what they do because I don't know all the different crew positions.
Sure.
Like going on set and having an intention, I think can almost distract you from this, like, I want this specific outcome. I also want to go to, because you've talked about being not being, I don't want to say not all in on acting, but not having that be the end all be all.
Sure.
And I love that you have an eBay business, a retail business and you've been doing that for a while. You're on YouTube. And so can you talk about how you discovered something else? Because I think this is so important for actors. Like, you want to get to a place where you are not 100% dependent on your actor salary.
Sure.
Not that I don't believe you can't get there, but like, we had Kurt Yu on and he said, I want to be in a place where like all of my acting money is bonus.
Yeah,
It's all bonus money. And it's like, yeah, I think that's a great place to be at and it doesn't mean go have a terrible 9-to-5 job that you hate, but like have something else that fulfills you in some way, that is maybe also creative, that you also find fun, that you can also be making money. And we live in a day now where like you can do so many things. You can walk dogs, drive cars, get groceries. You can work when you want to work. It is
Yeah.
incredible, and you can work for yourself. So it's like, I'd love to know how you got to that and how it's going and what you've learned along the way with it.
Yeah, sure. I think, well, back in 2012, I was living in LA and doing the typical. I was serving tables.
Yeah, you were.
Yeah, serving tables at a fancy movie theater, and I was also riding a motorcycle at the time because it's cheapest way of transportation outside of the public transportation. But I was actually on my way home from set on this particular day. It was a couple days before Halloween, and I was in Burbank, and it was 11 o'clock at night, and just going through a stoplight, and somebody just ran the light and ran me over.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Thankfully, I'm alive. I'm here, but I couldn't walk for a couple months. The injuries probably sound worse when I say that. This probably sound worse than they are, but I wasn't able to walk and serve, and so bills were still coming. But I was like, I don't know, how am I going to make money for a couple months? So I went to YouTube and was like searching for ways to make money at home, that kind of thing, and found, I mean, this was what, 10 years ago, 12 years ago. And even back then, I was like overwhelmed with the ways that people were making money from home. The most obscure things that I wish I could remember to repeat.
Yeah.
But I found a few things, you go down the rabbit hole of YouTube, and I found like people, scrappers. I was like, that's kind of interesting, going around in the mornings, picking up people's metal and going to the scrapyard and selling the metal. And I actually tried that. So after 2 months, after a couple months, and I was able to get back on my feet, I got a small truck with the insurance payment from the accident, and started going around and picking up metal and selling it, and realized pretty quickly, man, 500 pounds of steel is only netting me $7.28.
Oh God.
And that was a lot of work to go and to do that.
Jeez.
Yeah. So plus it was like, there's a lot of scrappers in LA. And if you're not up at like 3 a.m., like forget
Damn.
about it.
Oh man.
So it's like, this isn't going to work. So back to YouTube, and I found people that were going to thrift stores, and they were going to Goodwills, and they were picking up the most random stuff that I would walk by in a thrift store and just be like, trash. There's no value to that thing. But they were selling things for money. I was like, oh my gosh, like this is cool. Cause I've always been to, I grew up going to garage sales with my family and stuff. So that was always fun. So went to thrift stores, went to a Goodwill, found a little Hummel figurine. I think it was like $2.50 or something like that. And I sold it on Amazon for like $14 a few days later. And I think I profited like $3 or $4, more than doubled my money.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, so did that slowly a couple more times. And meanwhile, I was able to go back to my waiting job. But I figured out Amazon and selling on eBay pretty quickly, and that I was making money from people's like throwaways, from people's discarded items. I was going to garage sales on the weekends. So it actually happened pretty quickly that I discovered like there's everybody has tons of crap that they're just getting rid of. And you're actually doing them a favor, because they just don't want to deal with it. So you can get stuff for, pennies on the dollar of their value. Sometimes it's basically free, and you can turn it into real money. So that started back in the end of 2012, or I guess turn of 2013, really. And I just kept doing that. And I was between that, and then when I got back to acting, I had a good year in 2014. I booked like 3 shows back to back to back. And between that and the reselling, and then I have never worked for anyone else again, strictly because what I call like this instigating motorcycle accident. My girlfriend at the time was like saying how it was like the worst day of our lives. But looking back, I think that was one of the best days in terms of what that actually did to my life. The outcome from that accident has turned into now this reselling business. It is kind of like what Kurt was. Is like now acting has become bonus money, but I don't need it anymore.
But we welcome it.
Well, of course we
Yeah.
welcome it. Yeah, of course we welcome it. But it's like this reselling business has grown into, it's a lucrative business. And I started a YouTube channel, as you do, because I'm a YouTube junkie, and I learned so much on YouTube. And I was getting people, family, friends, other actors are reaching out because it looks good on paper. Oh, you just buy stuff from thrift stores and you sell it and you make money. It's like, I'm in. Like, so obviously there's some work involved, but that all said, I was getting so many questions and I was like, I just don't have the time to answer everybody individually. So I started throwing stuff up on YouTube and just being like, hey, check out YouTube. Here's some information. Plus there's so many people better at teaching it than I am. So go on YouTube and you can learn this stuff. Like I knew nothing about this 12 years ago. And just like, it's whatever, it's a 6-figure generating income now. And it's all done in a part-time on my own time. I do it where like this 6 months I was in New York on this gig, I was also reselling the whole time. So I was like, I can do it wherever I go. I go on vacation, I can make money. The vacations pay for themselves.
Yeah.
So I've longed for many years have tried to get more actors to just consider it or try it out because of how much it changed my life, and not just financially. It's freedom in all ways. It gives me options. In direct terms of my acting career, I think my success of the past, 6-7 years has a lot to do with this reselling business because of the freedom that it has allowed me mentally.
Yeah.
And financially, like just the headspace to go into audition and go into my work, knowing that I don't need the job. I don't care about the outcome. If I never work again, it sounds awful. If I never work again as an actor, that's okay. I have so many things going on, and this reselling business has allowed me this just to have options outside of acting. So it's completely freed me up as a person. And therefore I'm completely free when I go and audition or get to a set. Like I don't have that kind of, there's nothing weighing my mind down. I have peace of mind.
Yeah.
And a lot of it comes from reselling.
Bro, that's so beautiful. I mean, I want to address so many different things in that story. One, that you were able to, not many people can do this, like you said, your girlfriend, ex-girlfriend, about the accident. And like, this is the worst day of our lives. And, maybe at that time you were like, yeah, it's a pretty bad,
Yeah. I mean, at the
day.
time it was,
but
yeah.
enabling yourself to get to the place where you're like, it happened for you, not to you.
Yeah.
And there's so many different things that happen in our lives that if we can figure out this happened for me, not to me,
Yeah.
and like, what is the benefit of it? So the fact that you were able to discover that is incredible. The other thing I want to quickly address is that you started with picking up the steel.
Yeah.
And that did not work.
That didn't work out.
But the point was that you took action. And that, I think, so many people and anyone listening to this episode right now is like, wow, this sounds awesome. And like, you're trying to figure it out. You're trying to get it right. And like, Kyle didn't get it right on the first try. He's like, I'll try this, like, and maybe at the time you were like, I definitely don't want to be riding a motorcycle again. So I'm getting a truck. I'll also be working out my body, picking up the steel, right? So you figured out all these ways that this was the one that will work. Yeah. And you were like, this actually ain't worth it, right? But you just took action. You like did some research, thought, okay, well, maybe I'll try this. It didn't work. And then you went and tried something else. You didn't try to get it right. And if you did, you would have been stuck.
Yeah.
And so
like trying to force it.
Right. It's like, I just want to encourage everyone that if this sounds inspiring to you and you're like, I want to do this, like, I don't know what the answer is. Like maybe you're inspired, you're going to do the thrift store thing too and do that. Or You really like dogs, so you're gonna go
Yeah.
start some sort of dog
Yeah.
like walking business or grooming thing, or
Yeah.
like like, but you might do it and get bit by a dog and be like, screw these dogs, like, and that's okay. Like, go
Sure.
do something else then. Like, it's just go do it, and like as you figure it out, you figure it out,
Yeah.
and you'll learn. And we kind of we talked about this before we got started, but the vision
Hmm.
of what you're doing
Oh yeah.
changes.
Yeah. You figure that's the thing is like you figure you don't know what to prepare for. There's just so many things that come up. You can spend, that's another catchphrase we all hear all the time is the best time to start is now. And it's because we can spend so much time preparing ourselves to be ready for whatever that means in our heads, but we have no idea of all the things that are going to happen, all the variables that you can't plan for because you're not aware of their existence until you're already in action doing it.
Yes.
And to your point, like people have countless amounts of different kinds of passions, of things that they like to do. And we are, like you said, we're in a day, this particular time in history is we have access to just having access to the internet, right? You can make money doing anything. And I used to think that's an exaggeration. Maybe it is, but the longer I'm living and the more I'm seeing, I'm believing that it's not an exaggeration, that whatever you love to do, maybe you can't make money tomorrow or next week, maybe not in a year, but if you stick to doing what you do, and you will stick to it despite any struggles and obstacles that come along because you're invested in it. That's the key.
That is the key, though, is that
Yes.
I agree with you, but
Yeah.
most people give up.
Most people give up. Well, I think people tend to change directions or give up when they're pursuing something that isn't part of their passion. I think it's easy to conflate something that we're really interested in or enjoy doing with something we're passionate about. I think there's a line between them. And if you're doing something that you authentically love doing, you'll continue to do it and you can monetize it. There are something as simple as YouTube. If you like crocheting mini couches for doll houses, or last week I saw a guy who goes around and just, how, especially in LA, they paint the numbers on the curbs instead of the houses for the address, the numbers. And he makes a living just people hire him to come and make little art of their numbers on their painted curbs.
Oh, wow.
I mean, if you don't believe me, go on YouTube, type in your passion, and you will find people that are discussing it. And because somebody's going to enjoy what you do, and especially if you're really passionate about, that's the people that people want to learn from.
And I want to address that really quickly
Yeah.
because I want to make sure, because some people will think, oh, well, someone's already doing it, so I can't. No, that's actually evidence that you can do it.
Yeah, it's actually absolutely. And I think it's important to realize when it does seem something that's oversaturated, there's 1,000 resellers that doing what I'm doing on YouTube, but everyone is their own niche. And I
Yeah.
think that's important to keep in mind too. Your own voice that's where the money is. You get paid for who you are. And that, this is going back to this being an acting podcast. That's why you succeed as an actor too,
Yep.
for who you are, for what you bring.
Kyle, we really could stay here for hours and
Yeah.
hours, but believe it or not, this brings us to our spotlight sign off,
Oh.
which is 5 questions to end us strong.
Nice.
I've really enjoyed this time with you. So let's end it with a bang here. What is something that you're incredibly grateful for today?
Poof. Honestly, I'm sincerely grateful for everything. I think it can sound a little like pretentious and phony, but personal growth is such like an important thing for me that I spend a lot of time in silence, I guess, or in my own thoughts. And I think one of the outcomes of that, is just gratitude. I think this world there's so much that goes on in this world, that there's a lot of shit in this world, a lot of bad things, a lot of bad people, bad actors, not bad actors, but bad actors in the world. But there are exponentially more good people doing good things. There are exponentially more things that are spreading love, and I'm just grateful for the experience that I have, because I know that a lot of people experience out there are having tough times. So I'm literally grateful for everything. And something, not to go back, but when you mentioned, now I'm going to lose it, but yeah, I'm just grateful for everything, man.
Awesome. What is a book, TV show, movie, or event that you feel changed the trajectory of your life?
I think the motorcycle accident,
Yeah, I was
for
gonna
sure.
say, is
Yeah,
it
it's
the,
like,
it's
I think
probably the motorcycle accident.
like tangibly, if I look back, that's had such an impact on my life. But I do think that I think every experience you have, like every book I've read, every movie I've seen, anything that's happened, I think, I think it's easy to look back and look at like the tent pole marks of our life and kind of think of, well, this changed my life. But I think every experience we have ultimately changes the trajectory of who we are. Like everything, we learn from everything, or if you're open to it, there's something to be learned about everything. Every book has some sort of perspective. And that's a thing with discussions like this or advice. There's so much of it in the world, and it's like we try to catch on, and it's the stuff we're connected to, and even that changes. Like who we are as a 15-year-old is drastically different than who we are at 25 and 35 and 45, and that'll be consistent through our lives. And something that we hear when we're 15 might not make sense, might not connect to it. A book we read, a movie we watch, the message they're in, we're going to see that differently 20 years from now.
Yeah.
So I think it's a pretty relevant thing to keep in mind, is just who we are is constantly changing, and you never know where advice or what you're going to connect to. So just be open to all sources.
Nice. Do you have something within your routine that you really cherish?
Waking up. I like doing that every day.
Yeah.
Although I hear it's pretty good on the other side of things though too. But yeah, I know what you're really asking. I have my habits for a day, which I really enjoy. The typical things of, I make my tofu scrambles in the morning with my iced coffee. I love my
Iced
days.
coffee even in the winter?
Oh yeah, I can't do the hot stuff, man.
Oh, okay.
Hot stuff is gross.
Oh, interesting.
Can't do that.
All right.
Snuggling up with my dog, like the end of the day when I know I'm about to go to bed, and I know I'm going to if my dog sees anybody go to the bed, he's game for laying down and snuggling.
Yeah.
So just knowing that moment is coming soon, it really makes me feel so happy that time, that I know, okay, I'm about to go to bed and snuggle with Pip, and it's the lights go out, and I'm like, I love this.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know, it's simple, but I love it.
No, you're right. It's your relationship with your dog is something special. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's something you're currently trying to improve in your life right now?
I think like I mentioned, I'm such like I really try to work on personal progress, whatever that means. Self-improvement. So I think there's also, I think I'm working on like the balance between my ambition, working on the balance between my ambition and my inner peace. Because I think they conflict sometimes.
Yeah.
So I think it's hard to, to fill your life with all these amazing things you want to achieve or that you just do in a given day. And I also think that there's success, fulfillment can be found in the most quiet and peaceful moments. So if that's like when you see like, what do I really need in life? What am I chasing? What all these things I want to do, what does it really mean? What am I going to have then? Is it going to be on to the next thing? Am I going to want more after this? Because I have a feeling based on experience, when you get one achievement, it's not the end.
Mm-hmm.
It's just what's next. And there's nothing wrong with that, of course. But I think in the, a spiritual answer, I guess, a little bit, but everything that I really need, the things that bring me most peace of mind, are quiet moments and stillness. So it's balancing those two things.
Yeah, super important. And I loved how you put it of the balancing ambition and you said peace, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a really powerful way to put it. All right. Well, last question being if, and we talked about a bunch of things, covered a lot, but if there was something we missed or something you want to bring back, if there was something you want all the listeners to get today, what would it be?
Jeez. I mean, we really could talk for a long time about all this stuff.
Yeah.
I know. One thing, early in my YouTube videos, I was kind of all over the place. I had a channel, I directed it. So at one point I was doing like an acting vlog. I did it for like 10 or 11. I was doing one per week. And the goal was to do it for a full year just to show like the progress of an actor over a year. But 12 or 13 weeks in, I wasn't loving that. So then I was doing like random skits of sorts. Tried a bunch of different things on YouTube. But at one point I made this video. I think it's just called like It's Magic. And it contains a message that's really important to me, which is, in the video I actually talk about how if you see a magician do a trick, it's amazing. It's really cool. It's like defies the laws of physics. You're really amazed at this magic trick and what they just did. And then say he or she comes, they show you how to do the trick. You're like, oh, well, now it's just, now I see I peeked behind the curtain. It's still kind of cool that I can do this, but the magic is gone. Right. And I think a lot of life is that way, in that we as humans, we slap labels on everything. We categorize everything. We put everything into neat boxes, and obviously the world needs to avoid mass chaos, of course. But what we're doing ultimately is removing the magic from life. We're trying to find understanding in everything that we do. And if we can't understand it, then we make judgments about it. We form opinions about it that may not be accurate, but it helps us to understand and move on from things. But I think what is overlooked is that everything in this room, especially everything in the video I talk about, I go outside, there's an acorn on the ground. And this tiny little acorn, if given the opportunity being as simple as some dirt, some sunshine, and some water, that acorn can populate an entire mountain with a forest over a given amount of time. That's magic. The cars we drive, this desk, we look at this desk and we just say it's a desk. What's a big deal about the desk? This chair, our pants, it's just a shirt. All these things come from, they started as a spark of an idea in someone's head at some point long ago. And over time, people improve on these ideas. They think, well, you know, this already exists, but how can I make it better? What's a better way I can do this or make this, you know, improve on this? Everything that we have in this world, everything that we love, especially, it comes from centuries of innovation and discovery and a pouring of resources and love into making these things. And when we just sit here and say it's just a desk and it's just a shirt, we forget that this is a product of magic in the world. And like that magic trick, like the magic trick, it's like when you see it, you're so amazed by what you've just seen before it's explained to you. And when we have that, we treat it special. It becomes special to us. And what we do with things that are special to us is we treat it differently. We treat it with love and respect and care. And when things become behind the curtain and things are just what they are, and the magic is lost, hidden, buried beneath categories and labels and false understandings or miscommunications or what have you, then we lose the care and the love. So if we can just find a way to remember how magical the entire world is in our existence. And if you look at the odds, if you were to like Google right now, what is the odds of an individual existing in the universe? You'd look at the number and think it's impossible. The number is what I don't even know what it is. But it's impossible for you to exist here. And that is magic that you do. And that goes back kind of like what we were talking about at the beginning of, regardless of who you are or what your role is on a set, the fact that you exist, you belong on this earth, and you belong on whatever role you are put in. You belong in an audition space. You belong. And I think there's magic in that. And if you can reframe just to try and see the magic in all that you do, like I really think it can, even if it's just a personal level, that's how things change. That's how everything gets better starting with us.
Yeah, so incredible. Everyone find some extra magic today. Pretend you're not behind the curtain for so many things. Enjoy the magic of it. I love that so much. Kyle, I so much enjoyed this time. Thank you so much for being here, man. It was great.
Sure, man. Thanks so much for having me. Super appreciate it.
You're so welcome.
Yeah, man.
Everyone, thank you for tuning in. If you're still here, leave us a review. Make sure to follow if you haven't already. Make sure to tune in to the next episode or go back to another one. I promise you, this show is going to serve your journey in a big way. I'm Jesse Malinowski. We'll see you on the next one.